and there is all kinds of aspects of the issue here, and one of them is to do with having to do with no power or no knowledge, because I personally have never really installed an anti-virus program because I kind of stopped using Windows in the late 90s or so, and back then it wasn't so necessary to install these programs as it is today. And the other thing is to do with the image, or to do with the notion of you being the person who is liberated from Windows, and that's the same thing applies for Apple Mac users, and some of them have been Apple users and Apple clients for 20 plus years, and actually going into the Windows platforms, I think that many of the platform-specific skills are skills which are kind of going to waste, or skills which aren't transferable, or they have to do something they have something to do with the symptoms or with the atrophies of the platforms, things like the creases of the platforms or performance. Whereas in the case of Linux, you can teach people all kinds of tricks on how to automate things, or how to install many things at once. Can you think of any skill in Linux that requires you to just basically maintain the system that you need to learn?
No, I mean, there's nothing I can. I was just going to add, from my point of view, because as you know, I often document the new users that I introduce to Linux, and the one thing that I found is the lack of maintenance that these people require once they've got Linux on their systems. Often there's a few teething troubles, and usually it's just their own ignorance of the system, not knowing where an application is, or a different name that they might not be used to on Linux. But really, in terms of maintenance, I found the whole Linux experience rather boring, because one of the things I did actually enjoy about being a Windows user was the tinkering about and fiddling on and getting something to work. And Linux pretty much maintains itself, especially all the distros that I've used. So for me, when I came properly over in, I would say sort of around about 2006, I would class myself as properly coming over to Linux. I'd found myself very well at a loose end. There was very little for me to learn, because I didn't require the knowledge to keep my system up to date, to keep my system working, and I had very few issues. And by the time I think Ubuntu 8.04 came out, I found the system was so rock solid that there was never anything I needed to do to maintain it. It was all automated. I don't know about Gordon's experience or yourself, Roy, but that was certainly mine when we went to Ubuntu.
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff, when it comes to the skills and all that, I mean, the instability in Windows works for the retailers. It works for the vendors. If you're working in a store and you sell Windows PCs, that's all you sell is Windows PCs. You don't sell any other kind of PC. You have all these options for, do you want to spend an extra $30 and get an antivirus program? How about an extra $40 and add on an anti-spyware program? Well, there's another $40 here and you can get a firewall. And all this security is added in extra. And at best, it's I don't know, a placebo. I mean, I think it's more than a placebo. But the idea is, all these programs work, especially the antivirus. The one that baffles me with the whole concept of the antivirus program is, what I've found was it would accept the infection coming in. It would let you get infected and then say, oh, by the way, I'm infected. Do you want me to try and clean it? Yeah, okay. I mean, you shouldn't have been infected in the first place if you recognised it. But okay, try and clean it. And then it says, oh, I've detected it, but we can't clean it. Why? You saw it coming in. Yeah. Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you stop it? You know. But all of that plays into all of that monetizes it for all the various partners. People have just got used to the fact that after a couple of years, with all the defragging or the fragmentation issues, with the cookies getting cluttered up, with various infections and vulnerabilities, that a couple of years down the line, the machine is going to be slower than anything, and they're going to attribute that as being, oh, I'll just need to get a new PC. And that plays exactly into Microsoft's hands. So they're back in at the store again, and they're back giving more money for a new PC when there's nothing wrong with the PC that they've got. It's just Windows needs all that constant attention, and it needs the regular wipe and restart just to give it a clean install.
But I mean, now that I've moved out of Windows in the home, and I've done that more recently probably than yourself, Gordon and Roy, but you took for granted at the time that you'd buy Windows and it would be insecure and it would be up to you to secure it. And thinking about it now, when we're outside of Windows and I'm using Linux, it's like going and buying a new car and then finding that there's no locks on it and there's no ignition. Anybody can start it and it's up to you to secure it yourself. And it's really quite incredible now that people would want to live like that and have to worry about securing the machine to the extent that they do as Windows user. But until you come out of that, you don't see that at the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not even in their interest to teach you how to do that, because they make money from when you don't do that. And another example is, how many people, when they unplug a USB thumb drive, do they just whip it out? You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Anyone who does that, honestly, you shouldn't do that. You should always safely unmount it first and make sure it tells you it's unmounted first. The reason for that is because when you go to save something onto it, it's not necessarily saved onto it, even although it says it's saved. It's just queued up, and it'll get to it when it gets to it. When you say safely remove or unmount, then it says, oh, they want to remove that drive, I better write that now. So that's why if you just whip it out, it might not have been written, and it could damage the disk. So, but they make money. They don't. It's not in anyone's interest for people to be taught that, because if you ruin the disk, if you ruin that thumb drive, well, hey, that's capitalism. The customer's going to be back. They don't know why their thumb drive didn't work.
You don't know how many people lose their thesis in here because of things like that. The working clusters, they put all the text and they save all the work, and maybe they save it even twice, different file names and everything else. But then they flip out. They don't really know they're supposed to do something before removing the USB drive, and they don't actually save it locally, so they kind of lose a lot of data when they pull out the. It's a very, I think in USB especially that's the case. But if you just do something like a backup into an external hard drive and you know it's supposed to be idle, you don't do anything with it, it's probably quite safe to pull things out. But it depends on the program you're using as well, whether it accesses the drive or it has a reason to do that offline. But you'd assume some people don't know when the program is supposed to be accessing the file. So if you work directly on the file on the USB stick, then it might do an autosave every now and then and screw up the file system on it. And then there is also the question of what file system do you have on the drive. That kind of affects. And most people will use the same. Microsoft likes to use the patent encumbered FAT, or no, they have exFAT, and they have this company called Texera, which wants to help Microsoft put tax on Linux and Android via storage formats. And I know probably we look at the issue of fear, uncertainty, and doubt as it applies to security and the perceptions, but I think we should later on try and touch on the subject when it comes to patents, when it comes to the rhetoric of Ballmer and other people inside the company who talk about how the very same dependency they help create when it comes to the formats we use, when it comes to the programs we use, how they use that to not just to give the perception even Linux is kind of a criminal thing, but it's kind of like theft, as they might say, or disrespecting intellectual property, which sounds like theft, like somebody's stealing somebody's property, or so yeah, I probably should get to that at some stage.
Well, I'm looking down the list of subjects we wanted to cover around this whole topic, and one that Gordon has suggested, which I thought was very interesting, was about the government, and do governments have a vested interest in most users being on Windows? So since it's one of Gordon's points of interest, I think Gordon can start. What's your views on that, Gordon?
Right, okay. This may sound like a conspiracy theory, so get your tinfoil hats at the ready, just polish them up and just sit them on. Right, this is just a thought that occurred to me. I don't know how true might turn out to be, or it might not. I don't know. It's just a thought. I would not be surprised to find out in some years down the line that it was true. The reason that we found out a lot of Microsoft's tricks that